Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Ladies and gentlemen, what a pleasure it is to be here at an event that has been organized by our young Ottawa team, and they've done such a great job. And I'd like to congratulate them. Can we give them a hand, please? So today, I'm going to start by sharing a very personal story, and you will understand why. I was in the office of a principal, and he was saying to me, he said, anybody can teach gifted students. What I would like to know is, can you teach those people who don't want to learn? And I looked at him. You see, I've been teaching for over 20 years, and I had been teaching gifted students. But before I could say anything, my ego self spoke up and said, sure, I can. Sure. And that's exactly what he wanted. You see, he was a very, very charming, dynamic principal. He knew how to get the people to do what he wanted to do. And he said, oh, well, that's good. You have 3 classes that are highly motivated students and 1 class that really don't want to be there. So I said, okay, no problem. And I happily walked out thinking, that's okay, I can do this. And so I went back, I went to my classroom, I got it all, you know, the week of the school that was beginning, I got my class all set up, you know, ready to welcome the new students. And it happened that the class that was the one that he was telling me about was the first class every morning, and it was at 7 a.m. And I had to have them for approximately 2.5 hours. Didn't think too much about it. So as I said, I just had everything all planned and said, you know, when they come in, we'll be fine. So I'm standing at the door, ready to welcome the class in, and what I see are these 20 children walking in like this, just looking at me, not even smiling. And I'm going to say something to them, but they're not even looking at me. They go in. I had arranged the tables in a certain way. They take a chair, they put another one there. They take another chair, they put on there. And I'm looking at them, and they already had their heads on the tables, and some of them had their legs all stretched out on the tables in front of them. And, so what happened was I was completely shocked. But then, you know, being a teacher for so many years, kicked in, and I said, oh, I can still do this. I go in there, and I said, good morning, everybody. Welcome. We're going to talk about this, and guess what? We're going to learn algebra. Aren't you excited? You know, algebra. You're going to learn algebra. And they just looked. They're chewing gum in their mouth, and they're going, yeah, right. Slowly, I'm just standing there doing, now what shall I do? What shall I do? And I continue talking about something or the other. No attention whatsoever. This is the first time something like that ever happened to me. And I didn't know how to deal with it at that time. So 2.5 hours later, they left. This continued for the entire week. On Friday. By the way, the other 3 classes that I had were super. They were all great. Everything went very, very well. But something was that one class was still challenging me. And so on Friday, when I went home, I sort of locked myself up because I was really, really sad within. And I thought, I can't do this. I don't want this job. Really, who needs to be, in the morning, go there, the whole day's pattern is set by looking at these children, and they're not even listening, they don't care. I don't want to do this anymore. So I sat down, but somehow I cried my heart out because I said, I can't do this. And as I said, I cried and I cried and I cried. There's nobody else was going to help me. But once I had finished out all that victimization that I was giving myself, I calmed down, sat down quietly, and then I heard this whisper. Very, very silent, still, small voice coming from within. And what it was saying was, did I give up on you? I said, who's that? What's that? And then again, as I started listening to it a little bit more, it started again. Did I ever give up on you? And then I realized it was the voice of my master, my Guru Sahib. He had been talking to me. He said, did I ever give up on you? I gave you so much work to do, and you never listened. Did you do your homework? Did you listen to me? I told you, Parka burana rakho cheet. Don't hold a grudge against anyone. Did you do it? And I kind of looked at myself. I said, no, I didn't. Bure da parakar, gussa man na handai. Did you listen? And I said, again, I said, no. And then all of these things, they kept coming back again and again to me. And I suddenly realized, I said, my Guru never gave up on me. I want to be like my Guru. How can I give up on something that I've been given to do? And at that point, something changed inside. And I realized that it wasn't I that had to do that job. I wasn't going to do that job. If it needs to be done, it's going to be done by another power, not me. My ego self started to go back a little bit. Now, it was at that point when I started to really calm down that I said, okay, doesn't matter. I'm still going to go out there and I'm going to go and face those people, but in a different way. I stopped thinking. I emptied myself out completely. So then I went into the classroom the next Monday. And there, the first thing I did was I arranged the chairs in a semicircle, put my desk in the middle, my chair in the middle. And when everybody came in, they first kind of looked, okay, everything has changed, but they came and sat down. And when they were all sitting down and I was sitting in the middle, they knew something else was going on. So they came up and they said, no, they didn't say anything. I kind of just sat there quietly. They quietened down. And then I got up. I went into my table, and I picked up the book of the algebra that I had, a thick book like this, with all the X's and the Y's in there. And I took it, and I went to the garbage can, the trash can, and I went like this in it. Suddenly, their eyes lit up, and they looked up, the eyebrows went up there. What's she doing? This is different. So I said, no more algebra. We're not going to learn anything. And they just stared at me. I didn't know what I was doing at that time, but all I knew was that I was putting myself out there. I was making myself quite vulnerable. I didn't know what was going to happen. So I sat down in the middle and I looked at each one and I looked in their eyes and I said, this is what happened to me this weekend. And I told them my story. And they listened. It was very quiet in the room. And then I said, the only thing I want to know right now is, what about you? How do you feel? Do you want to tell me something that I don't know? I would really like to know. And at that point, one hand went up slowly and said, Miss,
do you really want us to learn about X's and Y's when we are so hungry? I was shocked. What? Hungry? I said, but you get coupons. You see, the school itself was a economically disadvantaged school. And they said, you get coupons. You can go there, get some food. He said, yeah. If we do, then the others know that we don't have any money. So we just don't go there. We don't want to show anything. I said, oh. Another hand went up. And I said, Miss, I slept in the car all night last night because my father was beating up my mom and I was too afraid to go inside. And I said, oh. Then another one told me another story about his father being alcoholic. And this way, so many different stories came up, and I just sat there and I listened. And then the time was over. I didn't even know. 2.5 hours went by. They slowly went out of the classroom. So I sat down and said, what should we do about this? What can I do about it? I can't. But he knew. My master knew. My guru knew. And he directed me. And I went. And I went to the cafeteria. The rule was that no food gets out of the cafeteria. I went in there. And I went to the person over there. And what happened was that the person in charge, I talked to them, and they said, it's okay. I said to them, I said, would you mind if my kids come into your classroom? And they just get, not the classroom, sorry, the cafeteria, and they allow them to get some food from there? Just for 5 minutes, and we'll bring it into our classroom? They said, sure. You see, they were parents. So then what happened? We got the students together, and they went and quietly got the food, came inside, had a small little meal, and we just sat there. I didn't ask them anything. When somebody else told me, they said, Miss, I'd like to learn a little bit today. And then all of a sudden, we did. We did a few problems together. Now, and slowly this went on, and they started learning. And in fact, there was a complete turnaround. We became friends, and they were able to share their feelings with me. Now, at this point, I'm going to go to this. I have a little bit time left. I'm sorry, I've talked too much there. The story here is not about me. But what happened when I became aligned with my core self, which I actually like to call my core self also, because that is by daring to be vulnerable, no idea what was going to happen, by daring to relinquish control, by surrendering, by daring to challenge status quo, by daring to be compassionate and putting myself in others' shoes, the inner guide, Shabad Guru, knowing that it is ever present, was allowed, and we aligned myself with that. I realized that was Sada Hajur. This above all, to thine own self be true. This is a saying by William Shakespeare. And what he said was, to thine own self be true. This is about the soundest advice you could get. But what does it really mean? How do you know who you really are, let alone how to be true to yourself? So then, who am I? That's a question. Who am I? Who is my authentic self? Myself. Let's look first at this question. How can we know who we truly are when we spend our time and attention trying to be something or someone else? Most of the outer labels of our identity place us in boxes like race and religion and gender and occupation. That's who we are, basically. But none of them are who we are. But Gurbani guides us. Gurbani tells us, Man, tu jot swaroop hai, apna mool pachan. And it is the divine light lives within you, in the sacred temple of your heart. You have always had the magic within yourself. So awaken this realization, like turning on an inner light inside you, as though we have to awaken something inside ourselves. No amount of recitation, of doing a lot of part every day, recitation scriptures is going to help us in any way until and unless it is internalized and it becomes our consciousness, our everyday life. So once we have done that, our inner system can then start to guide us. It's like your internal GPS system. Okay, so it takes you to a deeper place where you are in resonance within yourself, when you know when something is going with you and when something is not going to. When you listen to your inner feedback system, more graceful, more peaceful, that's what your nature becomes. So, living up to spiritual integrity, living from a place of profound authenticity. It involves being rooted in your deepest beliefs, values, and truth. And that's the important part that is a true reflection of them. So it's about being true to yourself through your thoughts, words, and actions. So if you are going to be doing something and really, really understanding it, then you have to believe it and make sure that you are actually willing to give up anything and anyone to be who you really are. So be. So why blend in or brand yourself if you were meant to stand out? For example, the mustard seed, the very, very tiny rye seed that we seed, inside it is an oak tree. It is already there. It's going to become that. So, be who you are by not becoming under peer and social pressure to become someone else. And how do we do that? To recognize your deepest self, to go within, through either Simran meditation or by constantly being mindful of your inner being. So who you are is that you are divine. When you realize that, then all that you do is in alignment with His grace, and that's what we call Gur Prasad. So begin to embrace your brand of happiness and don't ask that. For example, like always be a first-rate version of yourself and not a second-rate version of someone else. Look where it takes you. So daring greatly is not about winning or losing. It's about making yourself, putting yourself out there, willing to show your true self, daring to be vulnerable. Like, a lot of people think that being vulnerable is a weakness, that, you know, if I let somebody see that I'm vulnerable, then I'm not very, very strong. However, in a world where scarcity and shame, and we talked about that today, dominate and feeling afraid has become second nature, vulnerability is subversive. It is not only uncomfortable, but it's seen as a weakness, like I said. It's even a little dangerous at times. So, it's about courage. I believe that vulnerability is the cornerstone of confidence. Unless you can allow yourself to take the risk, to be open, and to live as a whole-hearted person, you recognize that you are just like everybody else. All you need in life is to be more like yourself. So the highest form of seva, as we have talked about that already, Sikh ways of life teaches us selfless seva. The highest form of seva is to first align yourself within yourself, your authentic self, to realize that it's not you, but your consciousness, the Shabad Guru, who is in charge. When he is on the field, then all forms of seva are of the highest form. Otherwise, it's not that. So what does it mean to be your authentic self? It means to be to have courage to be vulnerable, to show up and be seen, to ask for what you need, to talk about your feelings, to have the hard conversation. And will you ever be perfect at honoring your own truth? No, sometimes you will be, sometimes you won't be, but that's okay. So let's then dare to be vulnerable and live authentically. Dare to stand up for your beliefs and enter zones of discomfort. Dare to take risks and try new things. Dare to take detours to find life's purposes. Dare to reach our fullest potential. Dare to live in the fullest, life to the fullest. Dare to make a difference. Dare to become a Sikh. Nirpao, nirvar, without fear, without hate. The spirit of the Sikh, the true. And that's what we just have to go within to get that. Auditions are being held for to be yourself. Apply within. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki